You're gonna stay with your aunt and your uncle.
What?
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. And I'm genuinely surprised in saying that I actually really like the Bel-Air show. There are some additions to it that I may think are a little bit questionable, or elements to it that pale in comparison to the original. But if I'm judging the show on its own merit, which I should be, this was one hell of a first impression. I like that the show never comes off as a pretender. You don't feel like it's trying to be the old show. It's trying to take the original and do something original with it. What sucks is that there's always going to be a comparison between these two shows. But there really shouldn't be. Because while Bel-Air and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air share the same DNA, they're two entirely different entities. It's still a product of what once was, but it's being what it is. I think what's really apparent in watching this is that it's made by people who have a profound love for the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And as someone who grew up and watched that show religiously, it's fun to now pinpoint the references that they're making. Like having Trey as Will's best friend back home is a pretty nice touch. He was literally only around for one episode in the original series. I think it's really interesting seeing iconic moments from the classic series now recreated, but examined under a new lens. It's amazing how the absence of a laugh track and a focus being put on the tension of these moments can make something old feel like something that's entirely new. I think the show's brilliantly cast. There's still some characters I'm a little bit iffy on, but it's only because of how different they are than from what I'm used to. They're all well acted and well performed, but not all of these characters feel like the characters I knew and loved. At least not yet. Or they never will. I'm unsure at this moment in time. The characters on Bel-Air, for the most part, do feel like the characters from The Fresh Prince, just modernized and dramatized. For me, it's a little bit weird seeing an actor play Will Smith when that actor isn't Will Smith. I mean, I thought it was a little weird in the original that the character shared the same first and last name as the actor portraying him, but it's that much more strange when you have this new guy coming in, playing a character who's based on an actor who already played him. I don't know, I just thought that they'd at least change the last name. Regardless, I get why this guy got the role. He's likable and he conveys a lot of emotion, sometimes without saying anything at all, which was also a strength of Will's back in the day. There's so much to his performance that deserves praise. His laugh, his movements, his mannerisms, they all match up with the original. But the way he performs in the role is distinct enough that it feels like a brand new take. He never comes off as someone who's just straight up doing a Will Smith impersonation. Which is good, because if that was your goal, I hear Jay Farrow is still available. I find that when the character's at his most goofy, he does sort of sound like he's mimicking the actual Will Smith. And doing a pretty good job at it as well. But in the moments where he's at his most serious, and we get to know the character more intimately, he's his own man completely. You could kinda say the same for Bel-Air's Aunt Viv, as not only does Cassandra Freeman sound like Janet Hubert, but she literally brings the same energy to the role that she did. She fulfills the same purpose for the most part, although I do think there are certain aspects to the character that just don't fit the original's mold, and maybe they're not meant to. Like I said, this is taking characters we know and doing something new with them, so not everything is gonna line up. I just find that in this telling of the tale, Aunt Viv is a little bit more... I don't even know the word for it. I feel like this Aunt Viv condemns Hillary for actions that the original Aunt Viv would applaud. Here, Aunt Viv is upset with Hillary for calling out a company she deemed to be racist. But OG Aunt Viv was always speaking up. I mean, she went toe-to-toe in a one-sided battle of the wits with a police officer who put her son and nephew behind bars pretty much just because. For me, it seems a little bit out of character, but again, this is its own thing, so I won't judge it too harshly. And I'm gonna be a little bit honest here. When I think of Uncle Phil, I think of the tubby voice of reason. The stern yet fair judge who didn't cast judgment outside of a courtroom, and was also fat. At first, I just wasn't fit knowing that he was fit. I mean, I'm still not fit, but that's a different story. I will say that by the end of the first episode, the guy completely won me over. His heart-to-heart with Will felt very familiar, and it tugged on all the right heartstrings and nostalgia chords. Now, is this performance a spot-on recreation of James Avery's take on the character? No, absolutely not. To be fair, you're asking way too much of anybody to match up with James Avery. Is it spot on to his take as the character? No. but it is spot on as being in the same spirit of that performance. He's still the same wise, good-hearted, well-intentioned father figure who guides Will down the right path morally and mentally. And I gotta say, I look forward to seeing what they do with the character next. In terms of the kids, I have a lot of mixed emotions. When it comes to Carlton, the role is well performed, but I don't know if I'm necessarily on board with the role that is being performed. Transforming Carlton into the anti-Will and repurposing him as the show's main antagonist, it works, but man, does it hurt my nostalgia. A culture clash is warranted. Like, that was always going to be on the table here. It was a part of the original series, and considering that this is a drama and not a comedy, it makes sense that this would be overly emphasized. But did you really have to make Carlton a full-blown supervillain? The show just started, and almost anything is possible, sure. But it's hard for me to believe that these two are going to end things on the same note that Will and Carlton did on The Fresh Prince. To be fair, once again, this is its own thing, and they don't need to do that. I just wasn't ready to see Carlton as a jealous Xanax-snorting narcissist. Hillary is a wannabe / one-day will-be successful social media influencer. This version of the character definitely feels like the modern-day equivalent of Hillary Banks, though with some added tweaks here and there. She's not the ditzy airhead she was once portrayed as. Now she's a little bit more mature, a little bit more defiant, and a little bit less self-involved. Although her obsession with the idea of internet fame is a solid parallel to the original character's TV personality. Both reflect her desire to be seen and adored by many. Ashley's also there. I mean, just barely, but she is present. We don't get a whole lot of time with her character, but I imagine that's because you could only have a child actor on set for so many hours. Jazz is perfect. And that's the whole sentence. That's 3 words, that's the whole sentence. He's really great in this. And I think it's a solid interpretation of the original character. Because it takes everything you knew about the character from The Fresh Prince, and it just transfers it over to Bel-Air. The only difference is in this new show, he seems far less one-dimensional. So my guess is that we're probably not going to see the same gag for the next 6 years, which is a disappointment to everyone, I'm sure. That wasn't even sarcasm. One thing that really surprised me about the show is that they introduce Lisa in the pilot episode, which is one of Will's many love interests from the original series. Having them meet in the first episode of the show is a pretty bold move, considering that in the first show, the two didn't meet up until season 5, at which point she was only around for 15 episodes and then bounced. What I really like about this is that it seems like the show knows that she's an important figure in Will's life, and that's something that even the original series got wrong. Or, alternatively, they were just blissfully unaware of. Because the show didn't even end with these two characters ending up together. They went to get married, and then one day they weren't married, and they also weren't dating either. So it's good to see this character added into the mix of things. I was not banking on her showing up, but it was a welcomed, pleasant surprise nonetheless. Strangely enough, this show actually sets her up as Carlton's ex-girlfriend, which of course only furthers the tension between the two cousins. Jeffrey's also been upgraded from butler to house manager, which is a nice little progression there. As with everyone else on the cast, he is well cast, and I don't know what else to say about him. Because much like Ashley, we don't get a whole lot of time with the character, but he does come off as likable in the little bit that we see of him. And I think that he has a similar energy to his predecessor. Although, I do miss the wisecracks because that's what endeared me to the character growing up. He was actually my favorite character on the show for quite some time. He was like the perfect Alfred, without ever having been Alfred. But real talk, I genuinely can't remember a time when I saw something so great in terms of actors. I have literally never seen any of these people in anything before, and yet I'm a fan of every actor in every role they portray. There's not one bad performance or lacking portrayal throughout the entire show thus far. I mean, I don't like Connor. I could go without Connor, but I'm not supposed to like Connor, so job well done. Everyone is really going above and beyond in their roles. And it helps add to the gravity of these situations because all of these characters feel real. When the characters in your shows feel real, what they experience feels real to the viewer. We start the show off getting a better understanding of Will's relationship with his mother, and that's nice to see. Here, she's not a note in the intro song or an afterthought. You understand her as a character, and you understand why she flew her son to Bel-Air. I like that the show pays attention to elements of The Fresh Prince, and expands on them in ways that show didn't. The show is presented as a drama, but that doesn't mean they shy away from going back to the roots of the original and cracking a joke or 12. The tone and the issues these characters face are dark, and despite that, Bel-Air isn't afraid to show that same lighthearted nature that made many fans fall in love with the original. The pacing of these events did feel a little bit off for me at first. It felt like everything was going by just a little bit too quickly, but that's to be expected when the series is trying to get the show to its main plot, and they don't just have an intro song that's going to do it for them. All in all, Bel-Air is a complete love letter to the Fresh Prince. It's a great reimagining, but more so over, it's great in its own right. Yes, it reuses assets from an already proven series, but the show creates its own narrative with them. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that without giving it a chance, without having seen so much as one clip from the series, they hate the idea of this show. Why remake it, they say? There's nothing wrong with the original, they cry. Well, they're right. The original's great, but so is this. That show had an incredible legacy that very few shows are ever going to be able to match up with. And that legacy deserves to be preserved and celebrated for years and years and years to come. But that show's over. It ended. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion show saw the cast and crew come back together one last time. Having Janet Hubert and Will Smith publicly bury the hatchet and not each other's backs was a really great moment. It was the perfect ending for that series, following an already perfect ending for that series. But all endings are new beginnings. The final goodbye of the Fresh Prince has now become a wave hello to Bel-Air.
Yo, home to Bel-Air!
And this show is a celebration of that previous material, all while not using its previous material as a crutch. It's true to the spirit of that show, without it feeling like an exact copy. So I really don't understand the cynicism that surrounds it. Both can exist. This show's mere existence doesn't discredit or replace the one that came before it. There's enough creative space out there for there to be two interpretations of the same story, because good stories are retold. Long after their authors pass, these stories are passed on. And not only are good stories retold, but they're constantly reimagined. The old school Disney classics that you grew up with are just old fairy tales and myths that have been passed down for generations and generations, just then modernized and made more child-friendly. And nobody complains about that. That's how storytelling works. And yes, I'm all for there being new, innovative ideas. But at this stage in life, everything that can be done has been done. I personally believe the trick is to now do it differently. Now in this video, I compared Bel-Air to the Fresh Prince a lot. But moving forward, should you all want me to continue to look into the series, I won't be doing that anymore. From this point forward, I will forget everything I know about the Fresh Prince, and I will take Bel-Air for its own creative work, which it's earned. This show is not something to constantly compare and contrast to what came before it, because it's not just some cheap reboot or an imitator. It's its own thing. And from now on, I will be treating it as such. If you haven't already, watch Bel-Air. I'd highly recommend it to just about anybody. If you like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, if you don't like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, if you've never seen or heard of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I would highly suggest checking out this show. And if you guys like this video, well then, like this video. It's pretty self-explanatory and it helps me out. And if you'd like to see more Fresh Prince of Bel-Air content on this channel, or just Bel-Air content on this channel, then recite the entire Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song in the comments section. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't have some cute little phrase for you to write in this time. Prove that you're a real fan in the comments below. Whole song, start to finish, I will accept nothing less. Do it, I dare you. Matter of fact, since we're talking about a reboot of a 90s show, I'm gonna bring this back, I double dog dare you. That's right, serious now. Anyway, with that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank y'all for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.